Hello, I welcome you back to our series today. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're keeping safe. I also hope that we are thriving in our different changes. I would like us to revisit the conversation of children, having had quite some conversations about anger and the previous emotions. I would like us to revisit the conversation about children because I felt a strong conviction to have this conversation. I happened to work with children before my own faced their own loss. So my conversation today with you comes from purely an informed position as a practitioner, but also as a parent to children who have lost a parent. First, before I lost my own, I was tasked one day to break the news to my friends' children when their dad passed. And he had a son and two daughters. While the son was already informed, the daughters, because they were younger, they were living at a different home. So when I went to break the news to them, their reaction was immediate. Of course, they broke down and cried, and their questions were, "But we are praying for Daddy. We thought that God would heal him." And then the younger one said, "But now who is going to buy food for our home? I want Mommy to get another husband immediately because I don't want her to be lonely. I want her to have another husband." That's what the daughter said. When I looked at the son, I felt that he was being too strong for his mother because immediately he took on the daddy role. I also had the opportunity to work with a family where they lost a child. This child was a middle child, and I was speaking with the older child before the passing of the sister. It was more apparent that this girl would not make it because she had already been in the most critical state. So I was trying to prepare the family, especially the children, for the eventuality. And this girl told me, "It can't happen because I have prayed. I don't want my sister to die. I have prayed. Oh my God, if my sister passed, what would God have done to me? I have prayed and believed, and I know that that's not going to happen." Of course, a few hours later, the news was different. When I had to break the actual news to my children, I wondered what kind of words I would use. So I got home and called them and gave them stories of how we got to the hospital and what was happening in the 2 weeks when in hospital. And because we had been praying before the sickness at our prayer altar, my second child used to pray specifically to God. He didn't want his parents to die. And these were his words. "Oh Lord, I pray that everyone in my home is safe. Oh Lord, take care of those people who are dying. But I don't want my parents to die. I don't want my parents to die. Oh God, I don't want my parents to die." When we were in hospital, he called and he said, "I am very worried. I'm very worried. Why are you not coming home?" I said, "Because Dad is not very well, but we will come home." "Okay, but I'm praying. I'm also praying because I know God is going to heal him." I said, "Continue to pray." When I broke the news, I remembered his prayers at the prayer altar, and I wondered what his thoughts were. After some time, I wondered what his thoughts were about God, now that God did not deliver the way he wanted him to deliver. So, of course, at the breaking of the news, the shock, I did not have time to, help them understand the things that I also were questioning, because it was too soon. So we went through the motions and returned home, and I asked about how they felt, because we took some time to go back to the prayer altar. But when we went back to praying, I asked, how do you feel? How do you feel about the loss? And of course, we've been praying. How do you feel? And then the first one told me, I feel the presence of God more. Mommy, I feel the presence of God more. And I dream things about God. Did I even understand that? I don't know. But I was glad that at least he had reference to God. The middle one said, I don't know. I don't know. But I want you to be alive, Mommy. Don't die. I want you to be alive. Now, this got me thinking that as adults, we go through the different emotions. I talked about the emotions that children also experience, and the fact that we need to accord them time to grieve, and we need not to think for them. Recently, I have been wondering, this is why I had the conviction to talk about this. I was wondering what goes on in the minds of children when it comes to life and death, and their prayers and conversations with God, and their wishes in those little minds when it comes to supernatural situations. Of course, as adults, we have our pains and questions with God and conversations with God. I'm just wondering, do children have the same? When we attend to children's needs, when we talk to them, how do we talk to them about God? How do we help them to understand that He is sovereign without injuring their expectations and their little understanding and their hope? This is today I came to tickle our minds, because it's been on my mind as well. When a child says that I want my parents to live and they lose their parent, do they get to a point where they're angry at God? And when they're angry at God, who helps them? How do we help them to come through this, this confusion, to come back to a place where they trust and believe and hope for better? In the recent past, a friend of mine died. And she has boy children who are older. But seeing from the reactions towards the loss, because children have different reactions. Some will go quiet, others will be ignored, and they also will, they go into their little cocoons and they have their questions, they have their pains, they have, their own ways to deal with their loss. And of course, girl children mourn differently from boy children. Because we are also going through same losses, we don't tend to understand and appreciate how these children actually grieve. I know my own because I've experienced them. I don't know other children. I only know the ones that I've experienced. But I know that there are certain reactions that we need not to ignore. The times when children get into bad company, they start to do the things that we have not even taught them or discussed with them. Why? Because they're finding a point of release. Like I said, boy children mourn differently from girl children. I experienced a certain silence, a certain dead silence amongst my children, because probably they were worried about me, but also they had questions about their own loss. But they feared to ask me, because they thought that probably they would offend me, or that I was in deeper pain. They also have their own reactions. God forbid, when the children are older and the behavior that they pick on is actually maladaptive, because then we have bigger issues to deal with. I call upon every caregiver, every person significant in the children's lives. Please do not judge, do not ignore, deal with a situation at a time. There are many things we can't understand, but they will help us to understand. Of course, God gives the wisdom. I've seen children who take on to drugs and they become rebellious, but the core of the issue is their own pain. The pain of feeling misunderstood, the pain of losing a parent, the pain of losing a significant other without proper explanation. The anger towards a being that they can't even question. Of course, we all understand God differently, but there are ways in which children will surprise you in their reactions. My own children, their father used to tell them not to cry. You are a man, don't cry. Men don't cry. This and that. Man. So as young boys, I could see the struggle to express their emotions. When I broke the news to them, well, the first one understood and cried immediately. The second and the younger one, they started to ask for permission to cry. Mommy, should we cry? Mommy, is it okay to cry? They were shocked, but they didn't know how to react. It was painful, but they were wondering between being men and expressing their emotion. And of course, because I was not crying at the time, they probably thought that crying would be an overrated emotion towards their loss. How I wish I knew, probably my breaking down in their presence would have helped. I continue to pray to God to help them release, help them understand the things that I don't understand, to teach them, to explain to them. I continue to pray that He brings them to a place of sanity where they understand Him and have their own relationship with Him without doubting His godliness, without doubting His sovereignty. These are things we learn over time. Sometimes we learn these things after making lots of mistakes. As we adults need to be supported, children too need to be supported, and their reactions are different, so each one's reactions need to be dealt with individually. Grief is personal. It's personal to adults, it's personal to young ones. But we should not think that their reactions, we should not underrate or downplay their reactions. I also know that they become very protective of what is left for them. And we need to help them understand, of course, each day at a time. The children, my sons, 2 of them, don't want to hear about anything to do with moving on. The first one and the second one. The last one thinks that it would be helpful if they got another father. Of course, ultimately, that will be a choice that I make. But the children need to be brought to speed so that they don't feel the need to support with the process. They shouldn't feel the need to help you come out of loneliness or anything that should support with their grief. But this is work that we need to put and help the children to come through well. We don't have a script, but we ask God every day. I ask God every day to help my children grow in a way that He has brought them onto the earth and the purpose that He has for them. And I know, because I've supported people who have gone through major losses, I know for a fact that in the case of children, they have their perceptions and they have their perspectives, and they grieve as well. They pray to God where they don't understand certain things. They use the information that we have taught them to go through their own losses. It's different for boys and girls, even for men and women. There are a lot of men who are not supported to grieve. Why? Because the world expects them to be men. The world expects them to move on. But whoever moves on so quickly from a big loss, I doubt. We need to accord ourselves time. Men and women need to be understood accordingly. And when it comes to children, we also need to give them the time to grieve, but while understanding that the pain they express, the pain they don't express, must all be dealt with. It must all be appreciated, and they must be supported to come through their own losses. Anger, when it comes to children, it grows. It grows and it becomes something different. Because we don't attend to it as anger, it becomes transmitted into maladaptive behavior, bad behavior, which we may also just deal with the symptoms of the anger and not necessarily deal with the core of the anger. I encourage each one of us to look at our children. It does not necessarily have to be the ones you give birth to or the ones directly under your care. But I've seen that children outside of our home, when they act in a different way, we are quick to judge them without understanding their different pains. And because my children are raised by a community, I appreciate that everyone has a role to play in my children's lives, and I allow the community to raise them because I can't do it on my own. I have benefited from communal raising of children, and I know the things that I have missed, someone else has picked on, and they are supported well. Even men need to be supported in their loss. There is a lot of, encouragement for women. I've seen many women groups that support each other when it comes to their losses. I've hardly seen support groups for men. And I particularly am interested in supporting men to come through their losses, because I wonder what it would be like if I were the one who had died and my husband was living. I wonder what the world would be like for him. But because I work with different people, I know that the things that we discuss over time become different, and they make the people who experience loss become different people. For me, I say that my life changed for good. I may not feel exactly the same pain I felt in June, but it gets different every time. And I tend to appreciate the difference in my life and use it to maximize my satisfaction of life. I encourage each one of us to pay attention to children, pay attention to their questions, pay attention to the things they don't talk about, pay attention to their behavior, look out for them, give them time. Don't judge them, give them time. And if it's not your own children, don't judge other people's children, because we all do not know how long we are to live. We don't know if the ones who have lost their lives actually how they feel and what questions they have for God. So because we know that we go through life, and some of us are lucky to still be alive, others are not lucky, they passed, we need to understand each one's children in the light of our own, to be able to be just to them and treat them like our very own. I am grateful that mine, I said, are raised by community, so I don't worry that they're not cared for. They are very well cared for, but there are those that I've worked with and I've seen that they need a lot more support and attention. That's why I felt convinced and compelled to come and discuss this. Let's pay attention to children. Let us help them understand that God is sovereign. Let us help them understand that it's not that He doesn't answer prayers, it is that He reserves the right to give and take life, among other things. As we continue to journey on our losses, I pray that you find peace. I pray that you find the right support that you need. I pray that you find a comfortable place to thrive. I pray that you seek out help that you need. And when you have questions, reach out to the right support. If you have questions about the superior being, go back to Him. Until next time, keep safe, be well, and thrive. Thank you.